Well, that's not gone well. Okay, so in the video 3 weeks ago now, which just seems like a lifetime ago, and I apologise it's taken so long for me to get around to re-recording this. Hopefully it's not going to be 4 weeks by the time I get around to doing it. I do plan to do hopefully in bulk of this today, so we should be out relatively shortly afterwards, but just factoring in work and life and everything in general just makes this type of thing very difficult. But I do plan to do at least one video a month on going forward this, and hopefully more as I try and work out patterns and time really to do this, because I really enjoy this side of stuff. It really takes me away from the normal routine of life. So 3 weeks ago we had all this up, powered up, we'd logged into it. If you haven't watched a previous video, I suggest you do, but this was online. We had the SMC barricade connected to it in sync. We'd mess around roughly with profiles, but what we want to do in this video is actually take that further and get authentication working, and you'll notice there's a few more goodies at the top that I will go over very shortly as to why we've got those. One thing that was very evident from the last video is this cannot be in here while I am recording. This is too noisy. The amount of noise reduction I had to do in that video was a lot. I was a little unhappy with how it came out, given the fact I re-recorded large sections of it. I mean, part of that didn't help with the video capture and me using the webcam microphone rather than this, which is why I had to do a voiceover, which was slightly frustrating. I do have a new webcam which should be coming today, so hopefully we get some more clear video on that side of stuff, but this cannot live in here while I'm doing anything with it. So part of that is because of a fan tray. I do still plan to refurbish this, but at the moment while it's working I don't want to mess around with it too much. The fans are easy enough to do, I just not got them yet. I haven't pulled the control board out. I did find another one of these for about £100. I have no idea what condition it's in. I have no idea if it's any better. So the amount of money that I'm going to spend refurbishing it, I'd rather do that. At least I know I've got a nice, decent working unit at that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all this connected up. This is going to live outside next door while I'm recording this, again, just because of how noisy it is. But anything that we do on this, I will cover over it all, because we will be connecting up different ports on it today. In the words, in the view of getting authentication working, probably a better way of saying it. So yeah, right. Let's go and grab some of the other bits and I'll explain why I've got them. Okay, so in the last video, we had the SMC barricade connected and in sync. This is a router that I've had for 20 odd years, I think it is. It was very period correct, potentially a bit older than the MSAN. I believe this MSAN a little bit newer because it supports VDSL and some of the other more modern standards, but the ADSL side stuff is completely time period correct for this. This does have a log in it, but not any great deal of logging, and if we run into any sort of issues in terms of getting this set up, although we've got all the DSLAM logging, which is fantastic, it'd be nice to be able to have something client side as well if we need it. So for that reason, I have picked up a Draytek 2820 ADSL router from our e-waste pile in the office, so we're going to make use of that. This has got a bit more sys logging and a bit more logging in general on it if we need it to just basically debug client side. It also supports some of the newer authentication standards, so it'll be interesting to see what works and what doesn't work. It is also a backup if for any reason this doesn't like logging in to it, so we've got something that we can mess around with. We've also got a Mikrotik router board. Again, this was in the e-waste pile from the office. One thing that we do need to do with the authentication side is terminating to an LNS or LNS even, or a gateway fundamentally. So when the services authenticate on PPPoE, they're going to want to talk to a gateway, and we also need something to do radius authentication and even radius accounting. And these are a great sort of all-in-one box to do these. These have got a PPPoE server built into them, and it will also do local authentication as well to get us started. Now I do plan to do an external database and external authentication, this and the other, but we will be using this effectively as the LNS to handle the traffic coming in to start with, and relaying local requests locally to get things online, and as we will expand and do an external setup for that, but we will be keeping this to route the traffic regardless. so that's what that's for. I think really I haven't got anything else new as such to show you other than these. I think we'll get this power back up and make sure it's actually still working. It has accumulated quite a lot of dust over the past 3 weeks, probably more than it has done in its entire lifetime sitting in an exchange. So yeah, right, let's get all of this put back together, and I will get it powered up. We will be using the Ethernet port on the side of this for trunking out to this. We're still going to be talking via the management port. I did have a brief look at the GUI afterwards on all of this after the video, and we can set up a local management address for this. So I'll probably do that on one of the network interfaces, but for the moment, we don't have anything it demands for, so I might as well still keep using the management interface. As we progress in terms of creating subnets and IP ranges and so forth, it might be simpler if we put this all on one single IP subnet, so I can get to it via one network card rather than having multiples. But for the moment, that's absolutely fine. I've got 2 network cards available to the laptop. So, right, let's get all this connected up, and I will speak to you in a minute. Okay, just so you can see what's going on before this goes next door for noise reasons, as I've already said. Exactly the same setup as last time. We've got the telco cable linked into the filter. On the back end of that, we will eventually have, which is down on the floor, all of the connections in for the phone socket. I can't run that until that is actually next door because I need to feed the cables through a hole and plug that in. But other than that, exactly the same. DC power supply into the 2 DC power supplies at the top. We have, as I said, the telco cable going into the filter or the splitter. We don't necessarily need that at the moment, but I'm just keeping it in just for continuity reasons. And we've got the 2 links on the front. So the one we had last time was for our management interface, and I've also connected one of the copper ports. Now, I could have used the fiber port. However, in here, I don't have, well, I do actually, but for simplicity, we're just going to link it with copper. By default, the MSAN will chuck everything through the first copper interface on this. So that we want a really simple setup to get this working. It's all PPPoE or DHCP or all requests from the actual switch will come out through here, and it's exactly what we want, which is one of the reasons I don't want to start using this for management just yet. We'll keep it separated, get it start working, and then we'll break other things on it as we start to mess around with the configuration. So I'm going to go move all that next door. I'm going to get it all powered up, and I will see you in the management interface, or maybe back at the desk. We'll see how this goes and how long this takes to move. And future Adam has brought us back to the desk, and there's a reason for that. Everything is in next door, and it is a lot quieter in here. The fans have ramped down, so I believe it has booted. When I put it in there, due to very limited space, which is also one of the reasons I have a camera in there, I didn't actually check to see whether it had booted. I literally put it in there, plugged in all the cables, came in here, turned the power on. It's ramped up and it's ramped down, so I believe the power management's kicked in for the fan tray like it did last time. The fans still sound as bad as they did last time, and I'll go retrieve that in a minute because we're going to need it for this. But this is what we're working with. So we've got our management link, we've got our network link, we've got the phone socket, and we've got the SMC. And I thought, why not just plug the SMC in, power it on, and see if it connects. And if it does, we'll move on. Right, one power cable later. Let's see if I can remember where it goes on the back of this. There. Right, let's just lift it up so you can see it a bit better. So we've got our power light, and then we're going to wait for our sync relay to click in. I'm hoping this just syncs and we can carry on where we left off. I don't really want to be troubleshooting. Okay, it's attempting to sync. Attempting to sync. I'm very sure everything's plugged in. I'm starting to question. Ah, finally. That was a lot longer than it was last time. I mean, when we did this the first time, it only took like 10, well, even that was like 5 seconds. Perfect. We're back in sync. So the DSLAM's up. I am actually just going to pop in next door just to make sure there aren't any alarm lights on it or anything like that. And yeah, right, let's go and jump over to the web interface. Let's just check everything is all okay in terms of syncs, and then we will start messing around with PPP. And actually it's going to involve a bit of back and forth between the laptop and the bench, because I'm going to take you along as to what we're plugging in, where we're plugging in, because there's actually another network cable here for the router board that is sat behind me, because this is going to have to go into the LAN link for that. So we're going to create a little private network between it. Obviously there will need to be some form of connectivity between this and my LAN for it to go out, and we'll probably start with just local IP addressing, but the plan is to use external routable addresses on radius, and then potentially either BGP peer back to one of our nodes in the network, or I will just use a block of IPs from the network and route them down, and we'll do it that way. But we will see what future Adam decides. Right, see you in a minute. Hello and welcome. Webcam hasn't turned up, and of course I said at the start of the video I was having a new one, so it's a little bit disappointing to be doing this without the new one, so you're still going to have to deal with blurry and rubbish basically. But the good thing is I've configured OBS to use the mic this time, although I am tethered to a USB charger because the battery's gone flat in it. Yeah, and OBS has had an update as well, which made things even more difficult because nothing was being detected. So I've had to spend some time working all that out again. But the good news is that this SLAM is online. So let's log into it and just double check exactly what the SMC is reporting, make sure the sync speeds are still good, make sure there's no alarms or anything like that, because despite saying I was going to go and check on it, I haven't. It's still sat in the other office. I will actually go and check on it because it's quite warm in the UK today, and my office is quite well insulated on both sides, and in here it's getting quite warm, and in there with that little thing running it's probably also getting a little bit toasty. So I'm going to go and check in on it just to make sure it is not cooking itself, although I would hope if I log into this it's going to tell me, well, it will tell me its temperature, but if it's in an alarm state due to that. I can't remember what his details were. Was it admin? No, admin. Oh, it was 1, 2, 3, 4, wasn't it? Right. Okay, there is a minor alarm. What is all that about? Oh, me trying to log in just now. Right, okay, so no major or critical alarms. No, fantastic. Right, that port status I think was under port. No, it was under statistics, wasn't it? And then it was under the line card. And yeah, okay, cool. Port 1, link up. This at the 8 meg down and 832k up. 27 minutes. That's how long it's taken me to get from, well, not from that side to this, but that's how long it's taken me to set up all the screen capturing, because everything with OBS just went wrong. Okay, so I think we could jump straight into PPPoE. I think what we'll do is do a proof of concept first, of a really basic setup. So we could do a static IP on the router and then bring that across the local network. For that, we'll use routed IP over LLC, and I think I set this up for VCMux when I was last messing around with it, so we'll need to change that back. But I think that'll be the quickest way just to prove connectivity across the ports to make sure everything that is in default is passing all the traffic as it should be, and then once we see that, then we can move on to PPPoE. So from memory, I believe we were was it under port settings? PVC. Yes, it was here. Right, let's load port 1 and deal with the wonderful quirkiness of having to load it twice. I still haven't worked that out as to why it does that. Port 1, 038, default profile is fine. LLs. I thought I set that to VCMux. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it didn't save the setting. We must have saved settings, because, well, unless I didn't save that setting. Let's just have a quick look. Line card's been up even longer. Oh, it's those LLC. Okay, well, that makes life a little bit easier. Right, let's go and jump on. Well, first of all, I need to actually plug that Ethernet port in, because at the minute it's still sat on the desk, so I need to plug that into the network. And we'll jump onto the SMC and we will configure it with a WAN IP address of something on my local network. And then we'll see if we can get to the SMC via its web interface and also plug something into it and see if we can route out via the DSLAM via the network. Right, let me go and plug these cables in and I will come back. So moving on, the barricade is plugged into my laptop. We need to now log into that and configure it. So let's jump onto it. I believe the password for this was barricades. Yes, cool. Okay, so let's jump into advanced. We've got so many memories going into this, it really does. WAN. Let's configure a default gateway, which is going to be my gateway, which is going to be 192.168.20.1. I believe I've got anything above 100 is configured for static, so we should be able to use 20.100. The subnet mask is correct. Encapsulation is oh, we're actually going to be using bridged. I've been saying routed, haven't I, for all of this? We're actually going to be using bridged because we're bridging the ADSL interface across the network. We're not routing any IP addresses yet, so we're going to be using bridged. I will correct that in a couple of comments because I've referenced routed quite a lot actually throughout this video. I hadn't realised. And also the LLC and VC MUX, there is a difference between the two. Both are perfectly usable in an ADSL side of things. VC MUX, I believe, has a greater overhead, requires more channels than the LLC. Protocols for DSL network are not my strong point, but either or is absolutely fine in this application. So what we're doing, we are bridged IP over LLC because that's what the port's set up on the other end. We will change it to VC MUX, but again, it doesn't matter for this moment in time. Save. Now, do I have to reboot this given its age, or is it just going to work? What can we do to test? Diagnostic test? Test IP. Okay, so we've got the ATM layer up, but we're failing on the IP test across the Ethernet. Did I put everything in right? 20.100. Yeah. Okay, let's reboot this and see what happens. Reboot. Settings are going to be saved after rebooting the unit. Does that mean they're only applied after the reboot as well? We'll find out. You must forgive me, it's been 20 years since I last used this router. I mean, having said that, even some modern day ones like the Draytek that sat on the floor still requires you to reboot it after every single change you make on it. So, right, that is rebooting across the desk. And the Ethernet has just come back up on it. So let's, he says as he gets a timeout error. What was it? Advanced setup. Oh, it says it there. Settings need to be saved and the system needs to be rebooted for the changes to take effect. I obviously missed that, and I imagine a lot of you probably saw it and screaming at me about it. What WAN status? Okay, just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean it's actually connected because we've nailed it up as a static. So let's jump back to the diagnostic test. Hey! Awesome. So we're routing across the ATM interface, across the Ethernet backhaul and the DSLAM, into the network. So in theory, if I configure my laptop to use the SMC, or the barricade, I'm just going to call it the SMC from now on. If I configure my laptop to use the SMC, I should be able to route out over the router, over the DSL line, back to the MSAN, and then back out across my local network. Right, bear with me 2 seconds. Right, I thought I'd just screen capture everything because it's going to make life a lot easier. I've disabled Ethernet 2, which is the connection to my local LAN. On board is what we've been using for the link to the MSNAM and the SMC, just swapping out the network cables. I need to change the adapter to DHCP because it was set to static because I didn't want a default gateway to be picked up on this and then it to take the default route over and everything on my LAN stopped working while doing this. So let's set these to obtain automatically. I think DHCP is on the SMC. I never turned it off. It looks like it's picked up a network. Let's just double check. And yes, cool. And 100 meg. Remember back in the day where everything was 10100. How things have changed. Right. Let's see if I can still get to the SMC. That certainly looks like it. Perfect. I'm guessing that's my local MAC address on my laptop. Right. I suppose what's left to do is, can we ping Google? Let's find out. Let's open up a command prompt. Ping, which seems to be the de facto standard for testing. Yes. Hang on. Yes, I've got nothing else plugged into my laptop. That does look like it's going via the SMC. Hang on, let's prove that. Trace route 8.8.8.8. This is taking a while for name resolution. I believe we've got name resolution. Ping BBC. Do we not have DNS? What do I miss? Have I been in such a rush to get this done? I've not specified DNS servers on here. Does this even have the concept of DNS? That might be why I've completely overlooked this. Hang on. Let's just point it to the gateway. And I'm going to have to reboot this for that to take effect, aren't I? Potentially. Let's ping something we haven't potentially locally cached as failed. No. Right. Let's reboot this. Can't believe that. This is what you get when you're excited. You start tearing through things and other things you seem to forget about, other simplistic of things, but hey ho. Right. That is rebooting and resyncing, which has just come back up in sync. Let's jump back onto here. Let's jump back onto here. Why have you gone to HTTPS? You're not going to support HTTPS, that's for sure. Why are you now defaulting to HTTPS? Can I open you in a new tab without it? What? Why has that suddenly become an issue? Right, let me find out what's going on. Well, that's not gone well. I rebooted it and I got the login screen come up and I thought, great, fantastic. And I've logged in and I've been presented with a server error 404 not found. And none of the links that I've got in my history are working. They're all coming back to the same error. So I can only assume that either on saving the DNS config or rebooting the router has corrupted the firmware on the router. Because I'm getting nothing from it. I don't even think although apparently I still have an internet connection, so well, it's still routing traffic, so the core of it is still there, but obviously the web interface has died. Do I have DNS after all that? No. Right. I don't think that there is a reset button on the SMC. I believe it's all software driven. So let me have a quick look at it. Let me see if there's something I can do with it and coax it back into life, and I will report back. And the answer to that is no. There is no physical hardware reset on the back of that router in any way, shape or form that I can see behind any labels or anything like that. I will take it apart later and see if I can see anything on the PCB that we can use. Even if we can factory reset it, is it going to restore the files to the GUI? I don't know. It's quite an old generation router. The firmware for it's probably long gone, but I will spend some time later to see if I can find something for it, to see if we can't resurrect it later on. As it stands, it is still routing traffic. I obviously don't have DNS, and one thing I probably should have just done from outset is actually just specified a local DNS server on my adapter. I might still have a working SMC at that point. Probably not. Let's specify something upstream, which will be my Mikrotik gateway on my LAN. Right. Do we have DNS now? Yes. Fantastic. Oh, right, but going back to a positive thing, this is going over the ADSL link. So let's just prove that by trace routing out to Google. It's not responding to local ICMP on traceroute, which is fine. It doesn't have to. Oh, it did, but something else didn't. Oh no, it didn't. My Mikrotik afterwards did. Perfect. We're online for the ADSL connection. Let's browse the web on an ADSL connection, which I haven't done for years. And this is set to the 8 meg profile, so this is an 8 meg ADSL connection. Any of this gonna load? Is it? You know what we will do? Let's do a speed test. Oh, look at that. Back when I was, where did we go? I mean, 16, 17 maybe. Speeds like this were groundbreaking. Going from a half meg ADSL connection to a ADSL max connection with up to 8 meg downstream was breathtaking. This was fantastic. I mean, well, I've still got customers that still only have this speed right now, but oh, that's really cool. Let's do an upload test as well. Oh, it has done an upload test. So we've got 1.2 meg. Yeah, let's do speed test as well. Oh, does help if I can spell. This seems a lot slower than it normally is. I'm probably going to grey all of this out for the time being, because the connection I use is also the service provider I work for, and I don't really want to disclose that just yet. Wow. I'm so happy that this is actually working, even from a very basic level. And we have managed to break a router in the process, but this is actually working for me, routing over that ADSL line through the DSLAM back across the local network. This is a fully working ADSL connection. Second, yes, we need to still get the authentication sorted, and I now need to work out how I'm going to do that now with the Draytek rather than the SMC. But from a concept point of view, it's working. Let's keep pushing. Let's go and grab the Draytek out of the box. Let's get that set up, make sure that's working, and then let's push ahead with the PPPoE stuff and get that on working, because this is really cool. I'm really excited. Right, I'll be back again very shortly. Well, this is annoying. I guess that the SMC is probably going to end up taking the place in where the Draytek came from, which is going to be the e-waste pile. I'm really annoyed that this has failed in the way it has, but unfortunately that is one of the joys of dealing with older technology. They work and then suddenly they don't work. Especially at the most awkward of times. Anyway, right, let's get that out of the way. Let's get this plugged in and turned on. Now this is going to take longer to boot than the SMC. Most modern networking equipment does. That SMC, I think, booted within about 10 seconds and was in sync within that time as well. Don't get me wrong, the Drayteks are relatively decent devices, excluding recent breaches and issues they've had with firmware. This actually hasn't been flashed. I actually don't even know what this is configured or set up to, so we're going to actually have to factory reset that as well when it turns on. Right, let's factory reset it. Cool. Right, let's wait for that to jump into sync. And then we will go and configure this again and make sure this is working, and then we'll repeat the process, and then we'll move on to what we actually wanted to do, which is PPPoE. I was hoping this was going to be a short video of just, this is what we're doing, but it seems to have taken a turn for the worse. And by the time I actually get to finish this, my other webcam might have actually turned up. Right, that's syncing. You probably can't actually see it from where it is. But it is attempting to sync. I believe this is, okay, yep, cool, right. That's in sync. Let's jump onto this web interface, let's configure this again, and hopefully pick up from where we left off. Well, this feels remotely similar, going through and setting all this up again, just with another router this time. I think it's on 1.1. Yes, cool. Admin. Cool, perfect. Wow, 2018 was the build date for this version of firmware. I don't actually know when the 2820 came out. I can't remember. I'll pop it up on the screen. Configuration: WAN, internet access, WAN 1, and we're going to want 1483 for this. Enable channels, or leave that as channel 2. Bridged IP, which is who we want. VPI, VCI needs to be 38. Modulation, I'm not fussed about because it will detect it from the DSLAM. IP address 192.168.20.100. Gateway of, oh, so subnet mask even, 255.255.255.0. Gateway address 192.168.20.1. Let's force it to use the upstream gateway as well. That's all fine, that's all fine. Okay. And in true Draytek fashion, we are going to reboot to apply by. Although, to be fair, the SMC needed to do that as well, and at least this told us when we applied it, rather than the SMC's warning message before we got in that I'd missed. Right, that's going to take a few minutes to reboot, and I've not got any clicky relays in the Draytek to actually hear what it's doing. Right, okay, that does look like it's coming back up. Admin. Online status. Full initialization. That, I mean, to be fair, we will get more stats out of this than the SMC. It's just I wanted to use the SMC because it was period correct. If it has died a death, I will see if I can find another one on eBay. Okay. That must be a firmware glitch. Or something to do with the modularization and mode it's in. Because it's configured for 832 and 8124. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's connected. We have an IP address, and from memory, these have a built-in ping diagnostic for 8.8.8.8. We will await 10 seconds. Hopefully, it brings back a result. I know the WAN interface on this will normally send out an ARP, so it should have seen something, and the SMC was working, so I don't doubt this. Yeah, perfect. Cool. Right. Well, again, that means I'm connected via the Draytek, which means we should be on routing via the DSL network, and we are. Right. PPPoE is now next on the agenda. Which we're going to want for that tab. Cool. Sorry, I'm just glancing as I'm in here. Right, let me set up for PPPoE. To do that, we're going to need to get the Mikrotik out. We're going to need to get logged into the Mikrotik, and we're going to need to set that up. So that's next on the list. So let me jump back to the desk and get all that plugged in. Okay, the Mikrotik is in on the bench and powered up. Again, this came from our e-waste pile, so I have no idea what this is currently set at or how it is configured. So we're going to factory reset it before we go any further with it. What will end up happening is that this will be used as our LNS termination from the DSLAM. This will also be doing authentication as well through Radius through the PPPoE server. So the net or end goal will be there'll be a link from the Mikrotik to the DSLAM, and then there will be a link from the Mikrotik here back to my home network. All the traffic will authenticate on here, and then this will have a route back out to my network in order to get out to the internet. So we will be running a double NAT scenario for the purposes of the lab testing. At a later point, I will be putting routable IP addresses on it. But again, to get this working without a load of extra work of routing IP addresses down from our core network or me assigning IP blocks and reconfiguring half my network at second, this will work absolutely fine. It will give us a working setup with local addresses. So let's get connected to the Mikrotik and we will have a look at the configuration on it and what we need to do to get it to work with the DSLAM. You join me at Winbox. I factory reset the Mikrotik. I said it came from our e-waste pile. There was literally no point in trying to log into it and recover any of the config on it. I don't know what was on it in the first place, so we've binned it off. We'll start again with it. Winbox is what we use to configure the Mikrotiks. They do have a web interface to them, but I much prefer using the application for this. Also, one thing to note, it's now 4:30. I stand a very good chance of getting my new camera or webcam before the end of this video. Everything's taken much longer than I anticipated it to. It's just been interrupted all over the place. But let's move on. Let's get this configured and then let's hopefully get a PPP session up and online. So let's connect to the Mikrotik. Now it's not going to ask us for a password, but it is going to ask us to set one. So we're going to do that because otherwise it's just going to keep prompting us every single time we get into this. So we're going to change that. Now I have got some understanding of Mikrotiks. We're using quite a bit in the core and with custom sites. I've never set one up for PPPoE as a server before, so it's going to be hunting through the menus, but I'd imagine this follows the same sort of principle as setting up other services on these devices. So we're going to need to set up a IP pool for the IP addresses to be assigned to users as they log in through Radius. So we're going to call that DSL-IP-pool. And we're going to use a subnet above the one that I've got on my local LAN and for my OCD. I'm going to do 192.168.30.10 because I'm on 20, and then 192.168.32.20. So we'll set that up. Close that. I'm just going to make sure there's no bridges set up, which there isn't. Good. Let's go into the PPP options. Obviously, we've got no active connections. We need to set up a profile for this. So let's call this DSL. We're going to give it the IP address that it's going to be listing on the local interface for, which will be 192.168.30.1. And the remote addresses will be the DHCP pool that we set up for DSL. We're going to specify a DNS server. We might as well just specify an external one in here. I'll apply that. Okay, that. We're going to set up a PPPoE server. We'll leave it as service one. We will need to tell it what interface this is going to be listing on, and this will be the interface that goes off to the MSAN. So we'll set that as Ethernet 10. We need to set the DSL profile. and we'll leave everything else as default because we don't need that. Secrets. Right, this is the local authentication database. We are going to be using a remote database moving forward, but for now, just for a quick hack to get seen, or not quick hack, but just me being lazy, we're just going to use a local authentication database. So let's create a new user, and we're going to call it Adam and 1234. Now we're going to allow access to any services, but in here you would be able to limit the other services that are available, i.e. PPPoE, but in terms of troubleshooting or not having any hassle, we're going to leave it as any. We're going to assign it to the DSL profile. We're going to apply that. We're going to OK that. We are going to need to assign the interface 10 with that local IP address. So 192.168.30.1/24, and on Ethernet 10. Perfect. Okay, and while we're here, while I was resetting it, I did plug it into my local network. So let's configure the local network link and a default route. So when users do authenticate, they can get out to my network and the internet. So let's go back into addresses because I closed it like an idiot. 192.168.20.101 because the Draytek is still authenticated on 100, 24, and we're going to set that up on Ethernet 1. Apply, OK, close that, and we're going to need to configure a default route out. So default route of that, and we're going to go 192.168.20.1. Apply, OK. And let's just make sure we've got local connectivity. I've lost my brain. There we go. Let's just go for 8.8.8.8. This should work. I don't see any reason why not. Perfect. Cool. Right. This is all, or should be, configured. We need to jump back on. Well, I need to connect the MSAN to the Mikrotik, and we need to configure that user on the Draytek to see if it actually authenticates. Right, once again, I'll be back in a moment. We have returned once again. Right, let's log into the Draytek now. And this is going to be disconnected because I pulled all the links out for the connection to the DSLAM, so it's going through the Mikrotik, so there's no route for anything. So all of this should be disconnected, and apparently I had an IP conflict. I don't know how, because, and that's cleared. I was going to say I don't know how because there's nothing plugged into it, unless it didn't like being disconnected. Maybe there's a bug in the firmware. That wouldn't surprise me with Draytek, especially given the age of this one as well. Right, let's WAN internet access WAN 1. We want to, not really going to matter, but we'll disable that. We'll jump into PPPoE. We'll enable that. We are going to use PPPoE. We need to set the encapsulation type to LC-MUX because I haven't changed it on the MSAN. And we might as well set that to 1492. Username was Adam. Oh, not admin. Adam, can't spell my name. 1234 was the password. Password chat was fine. We're going to use it dynamic. Well, hold on to everything. Let's see what happens. It's just going to take a few seconds to reboot, or a few minutes to reboot. Right, one moment. Well, I think that has just restarted. I'm really nervous to see if this is logged in or not. I don't think it's synced yet. No, it hasn't. It's still syncing. Nervous. Cool. That's like we will. I was going to say upgrade the firmware, but it's never. It's connected. It's authenticated. It's got the first IP, the last IP address in the pool. Not that matters. It's got given the gateway address. It's passing data back and forth. I wasn't expecting that to work so simply, but again, this is part of the thing with the Mikrotik. So everything is very simple once you get an understanding of how things sort of connect together and the profiles work together in it. Management. No, I want diagnostics. I want Bing diagnostics. Oh, let's just go for it. Oh. Let's see if all my routing is set up properly on the Mikrotik. This is most strenuous. Okay. Clearly something's wrong somewhere. Can we... Does it have trace route built into it? I thought it did. Or maybe it's... Oh, yeah, it does. It's just a bomb. 8.8.8.8. Let's see where this stops. I'm guessing it's going to stop at the Mikrotik, which it is. What am I missing? Let's have a think. Oh, okay. I have a funny feeling I know what this is going to be. This is going to be my Mikrotik in my network doesn't know how to get back to that subnet. So let me pause for 2 seconds and have a routing on that and then come back. And here's the issue. On my Mikrotik, I do not have a route to get back to the 30 network because I was an idiot and in a rush. We want the entire subnet and we're going to route that on to 101. I think I gave you one, didn't I? If it's wrong, I'll come back and change it. Right, apply. Okay, let's shift that out of the way. Jump back to here. And back to ping diagnostics. Now, do we reckon this is going to work? Let's see. I'm slightly nervous again. No, we're still not working. I definitely gave that other Mikrotik. Right, let me pause properly and have a look at this. We are back and we have found the problem. I was missing a NAT rule. So I've got a rooted IP block and I used to have quite a few NAT rules in here to effectively force traffic from various different ESXi hosts in the lab out through various different interfaces. They're no longer needed and I've got rid of a lot of them, but I'd completely missed the fact that I hadn't set up a NAT rule for the new subnet. I've got it on my local LAN, which is absolutely fine, but I'd completely forgot to add the one for the new DSL network we set up. So that is now in. I know it is working because if we jump into Firefox, I've already tested it on the Draytek and we're getting a response from the BBC. So yay! This has been a fun video. It's been a long video. You can now see it's 4:30. Actually, you can't see, but it's now 5:30. It's taken far longer than I wanted to for various distractions. So we shall see how all this comes together when we put it together in editing. But fundamentally, everything's working as we want it to. We have a, oh, this has been so long, it's logged me out. We have an active PPPoE connection, which is being terminated back on the Mikrotik, which is acting as the LNS. That is going across the ADSL network into the MSAN, and the MSAN into the Mikrotik. Mikrotik is then connected to my network, going upstream out to the internet, and everything is routing across as it should be. Now, one of the goals I want to do, as I said, is set all this up as a static routable external address, and we will cover that off in a future video. But at the moment, we have PPPoE working, we have termination, we have routing. We're another step closer to actually getting all this set up on Smoothwall and doing the other things that we want to do with it. But I will come back to all of this in the outro, rather than you looking at me through this rather crappy webcam, which I still don't have my new one yet, despite how long this has taken today. But I did anticipate that would happen earlier on. So right, let's get all this tidied up and let's cover it off in the end. So closing this out real quick, because I've got a lot to get on with, including editing this video and looking at the corner of my eye. OBS is still picking up audio, which makes me really hope that it recorded everything I did through the lav mic today and not the webcam, which will be extremely frustrating given the amount of effort I went into to making sure this was all set up correctly. But thinking about it, I did swap the receiver out earlier, so I do hope it didn't default. So I'll have to go through later and find out what's usable and what's not usable. And I have to apologize as well. Today has been a very screen capture orientated video. It's just unfortunately the way it fell. All of this needed to be configured, you know, from their interfaces, and it's just the way it was, unfortunately. Moving forward, we will be getting a bit more into the hardware side of stuff with it again. And speaking of hardware, new webcams turned up, so if I am in front of it doing more sort of GUI setup, which I will be on and off, at least you'll be able to see me a bit clearer this time. And unfortunately, hardware again, our little SMC that seems to have partly died, at least in terms of being able to access this via its web interface anyway. I will look to see if I can recover this. I will see if SMC have any sort of firmware still available for it, or whether there is a TFTP recovery tool or firmware or flash or something to get the firmware back onto this. But from an external point of view, there's very little actually on it that you can actually use to get into it. So we'll have to see if we can find a manual. I'll have a play around with it. But as I said earlier, it is the unfortunate thing with old hardware. You never really know how much longer or how much life you've got left out of it, and sometimes things just break. So I will try and get another one, because I did want this to be part of what we're doing. Although it's not the end goal, it was very period correct in terms of setting all of this up. So I will see if I can get hold of something else to go, well, to replace it if we can't. Obviously, we've been using the Draytek all of today, which has done and served its purpose very well, as I'd expect. It is a router at the end of the day. I had only planned to use this for testing and diagnostics, as I said earlier on, but as it happens, we've used it for pretty much most of the video, and, you know, it enabled us to do what we needed to do and complete the video, which, you know, for that I'm grateful for. And then, of course, we've got our little Mikrotik router that's sat underneath, which is acting as our LNS and PPPoE termination server, that's still sat there responding to the Draytek. It's still got his session up. I haven't torn any of that down yet. So yeah, all of this has come together really well and without issue, which I'm really grateful for. Although I do this for a living, it has been a very long time since I set anything up from scratch like this. So the fact that it all just fell together, you know, was really helpful given some of the other issues that we've encountered today. So yeah, I'm looking forward to moving, you know, ahead with this. There's a load of things we want to start exploring. You know, we want to stick routable IP addresses on the radius sessions. So maybe that involves us BGP peering the Mikrotik with the core, or maybe I just give myself some more IP addresses and then we'll route them across the network manually, and then, you know, get these accessible from the net and actually have a full ISP setup within the office. And obviously the end goal is to get Smoothwall online with a Stingray that I've got underneath the desk, the one I've had for my childhood basically. So it'd be really good to get all that back together, and hopefully that does not meet the same fate as the SMC. It'd just be typical, wouldn't it? I do have another one, a spare one, that I got off of eBay a little while ago. So we do have something to fall back on, but I would like to get the one I had working as well. So yeah. Anyway, I am going to go and get tidied, because all of this has got to go back into storage. I've got to go and get some food because I'm hungry, because it's very late into the evening at the minute. And yeah, so thank you very much for watching. If you've liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, drop me a comment as to why. Again, I know there's a load of mistakes in this. I'm trying. We're going to get better as we go through. If you like the content, please hit subscribe. Whether you do or not won't dictate from me doing any of this, but it is a bit of a confidence boost when I do sort of see these little things pop in, so I do appreciate it. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. Take care.